Dystopia tonight.
This whole show could have been just me listing your credits, and then we could have ended.
Yeah, well, they're a little confused. The Glenn Campbell, I wrote the Smothers show starring Glenn Campbell. That was his first show.
Oh, okay, I got you. So it's not okay. It
And then
wasn't
he got the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour, but I moved on. I was doing other
right.
stuff by that time.
But you're responsible for Glenn Campbell's whole career, is what we're going to get down to tonight, right?
Well, I was on that first writing staff that put him on the air. That was me and John Hartford and Steve Martin
Oh
and
my God.
Bob Einstein and Lorenzo Music and
Which
Murray Roman, McLean Stevenson.
Oh my God. So when you say Lorenzo Music, by the way, I didn't really. I mean, I know most things about comedy history and all that other stuff. That's Carlton, your doorman, and the voice of Garfield, right? That Lorenzo
Yeah,
Music.
that's Lorenzo Music, yes.
I did not know that he started out as a comedy writer.
He started out as a performer. There was an act called Jerry and Myrna Music.
Oh my God, I did
And
not
they
know
performed.
that.
I saw them at the Hungry Eye in 1960s. But then she quit to raise a family, and he went. He and I were working on the Glenn Campbell, and then he and his another partner wrote. Oh no, yeah, no. Then we were working. Then we got picked up to write the Smothers show.
Hmm.
So we were writers on the Smothers show. We were mostly responsible for the monologues,
Oh, fantastic.
and we wrote a monologue for Newhart, who was going to be a guest on the show.
Hmm.
And the Newhart monologue was a big hit for Newhart.
Wow.
So he bought it from us to use in his act.
Oh
And he
my
used it in his
God.
act for the next 10, 20 years. So if you've seen Newhart in Las Vegas anytime in the 80s or the 90s, or even now, I don't know. I don't know if
I have his albums.
I don't know if he ever recorded it because that would have triggered another payment. But but he paid us a good price just to use the sketch,
Mhm.
and it was a monologue called "The Air Traffic Controller."
Oh, I know that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
where he's on it's a switch on his phone, his phone shtick. So instead of being
Right.
on the phone, he's an air traffic controller talking to an airplane
Oh
uh,
my God.
on his way in.
That's fantastic. And so comedians back then, so like Newhart wouldn't have a monologue prepared, or like those guys wouldn't have a monologue prepared. It was up to you guys to write the comedian's
Well,
monologue.
no, what happened is, television is eats material. I mean, you do it on television, you can't do it again,
Sure.
and so you try not to do like the Smothers Brothers would resist using because it took them 30 years to build their act, and every time they did
Yeah.
12 minutes from their act on television, that was 12 minutes they couldn't do again on
Yeah.
television. Still do it in their act, but even then. So we specialized in writing new material that sounded like old material.
Oh,
Lorenzo
that's
and I could
awesome.
write the brothers in their own voices. We had a knack for that. So
Right.
so we wrote their monologues, and Newhart was going to be a guest on the show, and we had a long involved sketch that involved dancers and singers and uh, a optical number with dancing on the wing of an airplane like flying down to Rio, and the production was going to be in those days you could do a hunk on a variety show from commercial to commercial, which was like 12 or 13 minutes. So you would do a sketch, a musical number, a dance number, and then you tie it all together.
Wow.
So we had been working on a piece for Newhart when he was coming to the show, uh, and gradually the dancers and the singers fell out. We didn't have rehearsal time. There was
Hmm.
other guests on the show, so all we were left with was the monologue for Newhart, which he performed and did very well on and liked it so much. Like I say, he bought it from us, and that is that he established a relationship with Lorenzo and Lorenzo's other writing partner, a guy named Dave Davis.
Wow.
So they pitched him on the Bob Newhart show, and the rest was history. They got to
Holy.
produce the Newhart show, and then and uh, Lorenzo was kind of gracious by they did a TV Guide article
Hmm.
about how he got the show, and he wrote in to correct him. He says, "No, there was another guy in the room who wrote that Newhart monologue with me, and his name was Carl Gottlieb, and blah blah blah." So
Hmm.
he shared the credit, but he didn't share the royalties.
which is classic comedian writing.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. So was there ever anybody on the show that you were writing for that you thought just butchered what you did? And like because I feel like I've written for a few things before too, and like I stopped watching who I was writing for sometimes on stuff because if they didn't tell it exactly right or like they didn't get to the joke depending on what kind of show it was,
Yeah,
it would drive me crazy.
the hardest thing, and it's the most painful thing for a writer, is you say trust the material, just read it. You don't have to,
Hmm.
because even the Smothers Brothers were guilty of this, and they were as savvy as anybody. But the performer's instinct is to make it your own. Put
Right.
yourself into the material. So when it's really well written and it's already in your voice, which I pride myself on doing, I can write
Hmm.
in someone else's voice. You don't need to fuck around and change it, change the
Right.
word.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
but performers being performers, it's very hard for them not to do that. So
Yeah.
we're we're and then so you sit there and then they come off stage and say, well, that didn't work very well. And I said, yeah, it would have worked very well if I can just read it off the cards the way it was written. But
I know.
no, you had to improvise. So
Yeah. That's the most frustrating part too. And there's been times where like, and have you like, I don't know if you're allowed to do this in the writers' rooms and stuff like that, when you were doing it back then, but like, I know I've kept jokes. Like I'll be writing for somebody or whatever, and I'm like, oh, this is too fucking good. I'm not gonna part with this one. And then you start rewriting like something else along the way.
yeah, I think I'm not going to wear glasses because they just reflect the TV, the screen.
You look great either way. Glasses, no glasses.
Thank you. I had a haircut recently. I try to stay well groomed, even though I'm
Right.
confined indoors.
Uh-huh. I feel like that's a knock against me because my hair has been grown.
Uh, well, I've seen there's a friend of mine who I see on Zoom every couple of weeks,
Hmm.
and he hasn't had a haircut in 6
Yeah.
months, and he looks like a crazy old lady with gray hair. All
That's amazing. That's what
pull
I'm
it back,
hoping.
pull
I'm
it back,
hoping.
put it in a bun. No,
I'm
no,
going for a Mary Tyler Moore thing.
yeah. But yours looks fine. You're a long-haired guy. That's all there is to it.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows any
I'm,
different.
I'm obviously a short-haired or no-haired guy.
Oh, see, we got a friend that says Courtney said looking sharp both. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I feel like this is like this is a good indication to people outside of the world that I've been being safe. I'm like, as long as I keep letting my hair go, they'll be like, that young man has not been outside. Uh, he has not seen a doctor.
Social distancing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm being safe. So that was your it's like I was so who gave you your first writing job? Was it the Smother? Was that it, or did you have like some other work behind that?
Well, I went to college, and I went to Syracuse University
Right.
before the Annenberg School of Communications. They had a very good journalism school,
Okay.
but it was just called J School. But I
Hmm.
got a dual major in journalism and theater arts. So I
Right.
did drama and journalism. And the one decision, and I had to graduate mid-year. I would have been class of '59, but because I transferred to Syracuse, I lost some credits, and I had to
Hmm.
spend the last semester making up like 9 credits. So I didn't graduate until January of '60. And of course, in January in Syracuse, there's no ceremony, there's no caps and gowns, there's no walking down
Right.
the aisle. It's just frozen cold and towering drifts and the wind blowing down over Lake Erie across Buffalo and 12-foot snowdrift. So I got out of one day in mid-January. I'm all of a sudden I'm not in college anymore. I don't have to write a paper. I don't have any assignments due. I'm out in the real world. I got to give up my dorm room. I got to, it's over.
Yeah.
And uh, it's a time for kind of a bit of introspection. Okay, now what? I'm 21 years old. I'm going to lose my draft deferment. I'm probably going to wind up spending time in the Army sometime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So the decision I made was I am only going to work in show business. I'm not going to be a cab driver or a carpenter or a merchant seaman or any of those,
Wow.
dust jacket jobs. I'm going to only work
Right.
in show business if I can, and whether whatever I get paid. And in those days, I had technical skills. I could build scenery, and I was a very good stage manager and a press agent, publicist, which I did
Wow.
cover stock. So I had these skills, and I was able to kind of make a living. Sometimes I would get $25 a week and meals
Mm-hmm.
for emceeing in a Greenwich Village coffee house and hanging the lights and doing the sound.
Wow.
Being a jack of all trades, but
Mm-hmm.
it was useful. I met some of my oldest friends in show business go back to that winter of 1960 in New York, Greenwich Village. Fred Willard was working with his partner Vic
Oh
Greco,
man, no way. That's awesome.
Greco and Willard, and the premise was just across the street, and that was I think Buck Henry and George Siegel.
Wow.
Were improvising. Then Dick Libertini was in an act called Stewed Prunes. Uh, Cafe Wa, Peter, Paul, and Mary were just getting together. Cafe Wa.
Holy shit.
So it was a very exciting time to be in Greenwich Village. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I was working, as a stage manager. Then I went to work. Then I got drafted.
Okay.
I went into the Army. I came out of the Army in '63. And by that time, my friends had opened the committee in San Francisco, and they needed a stage manager. So
Mm-hmm.
I went to San Francisco as a stage manager with the committee, and occasionally would appear on stage in the character of stage manager and get a few
Right.
laughs. And then I took one job after another. But my first real money for writing in '65, I left the committee for a season and went to work in New York for a Broadway producer named Arthur Cantor. And and while I was there, I had sent a query letter,
Mm-hmm.
just like they taught us in journalism school.
Oh,
I sent,
nice.
I sent a cold call, a cold letter to Esquire magazine. And one day I get a phone call from a soft-spoken Southern literary gentleman. This is Mr. Gottlieb. This is Harold Hayes over at Esquire, and he was a legendary editor of Esquire magazine.
Yeah.
And they hired me to write my little article. It's a related piece, and they paid me $519.65. $565. That
Wow.
was the first money I ever made, and it was like deceptively simple. I said, oh, it's like they taught us in school. You write a letter, you send it, they read the letter, they buy the article. What's so hard about that?
Holy shit.
So I took my $500 and I bought a motorcycle. I bought a
As you
Triumph
do.
chopper, as one
Yeah.
does.
Right.
And I bought a Triumph chopper, and then the committee wanted me back as an actor this time.
Wow.
So I loaded my motorcycle onto a trailer and all with my worldly possessions and drove across country to San Francisco and went to work as an actor with another former stage manager named Howard Hessman. That's it. The career track at the committee was you work as a stage manager, you graduate to the acting company, and then and you go on from there.
Right.
That happened to me, Howard Hessman, a guy named Jim Crana, Gary Austin, who founded the Groundlings, began as a committee stage manager.
Wow.
We have a long history of that. So anyway, and then when I was in the committee as an actor, we were a hit, and then we went to L.A. and we were a hit in L.A. and one thing led to another. And in L.A., various casting directors saw us, and we weren't a regional theater anymore. We had a little bit of national status. That's when I got cast in the movie of MASH.
Okay.
68,
Well,
69.
so were you still writing for Esquire though when you were doing these acting things in the committee, or did you leave that behind?
That was a one-off. It was just an article and a service
That's
fee.
incredible. So
Yeah,
you just did a one-off, got $500, bought a motorcycle, pieced out, and then automatically went into acting into the committee.
yeah,
Oh my God, that's incredible.
well, yeah. Well, it's
Somebody said, "Hell
my,
yeah!"
my whole life is like one thing led to another.
Wow.
There was I had an agent in L.A. who
Mm.
was one of the first guys who had the idea for packaging clients together.
Oh,
And that guy's name was Mike Medavoy, and he was an agent at CAA. And then he
wow.
put me together with another client of his named Steven Spielberg, who was the new kid in town. I,
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
acted,
Pronounce that again. I don't think I. No, I'm just kidding.
so I acted in a couple of Steven Spielberg television movies,
Oh wow.
before Jaws, and we went out together to try to sell stuff, and we could never sell anything because the deal was Steven would be locked in to direct, and nobody would commit to that.
Wow.
So we never sold anything. But in the meantime, he did Duel, and then he did Sugarland Express, and then he got Jaws, and he involved me in that, and
Hmm.
that was another right place, right time,
Right.
and who knew? No, nobody.
Yeah. And Duel was like a almost like was that like the
It was a
kind of like a
90
moment?
minute. It was a 90-minute television movie. Universal used to do these 90-minute movies for television. That
Yeah,
was
I've seen
sometimes
it.
they would be backdoor pilots.
Right.
It's funny. There was a Lifetime Achievement Award for Spielberg once, and Dennis Weaver spoke.
Oh wow.
And and he had been in Duel. He was
Hmm.
the protagonist in Duel,
Yeah.
and he said, I'm probably the last person who ever got to approve Steven Spielberg as a director. He was a star. He was coming off of McCloud and
Yeah.
Dunkirk, so he was a star, and Steven was this kid who was going to do this TV movie.
Hmm.
And Steven had distinguished himself. He did the pilot for Columbo.
Oh, okay.
He shot the first Columbo, and
I didn't
then
know
had
that.
nothing to do with it ever again. But in the meantime, he had gotten this contract at Universal to be a director, and was doing one thing after another,
Wow.
then he became Steven Spielberg. And
That's
I happened to be there, so we did that stuff together.
That's incredible. Because Duel was like when I remember when I was a kid and I saw Duel, and I saw Jaws first because they didn't really play Duel that often, but I knew it was on TV or whatever it was, and I looked it up and it was Spielberg, and it was kind of reminiscent. It reminds you of Jaws a little bit. That truck
Oh
is
yeah,
like
yeah.
Jaws,
Oh yeah, yeah. And they
and
both make the same sound when they die.
yeah, yes, which is like a nice little wink if you're like paying
Yeah.
attention, which is so great. That was like before. Was that the first time anybody put an Easter egg in a movie? Do you think, like, with like a little nod to their prior film?
I don't know. I think some people did it all the time. I remember what was I watching? Dog Day Afternoon or something.
Mm-hmm. It's a
There's
good
a,
one.
yeah, there's a no, no. It was Laurence Olivier. It was about diamonds. Uh,
Okay.
anyway, no, the directors always, they they'll stick something in every now and then. There's a if you I'm sure if you go on internet and start looking up Easter eggs, you'll find all kinds of surprises.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
Uh, no,
it's amazing.
you'll see like there'll be a Western street, and like the blacksmith shop will be named after the associate producer or something. You'll recognize
Hmm.
the name of something because since they're
Right.
creating all of it, they can make it anything you want.
So
Well,
in this, so in this timeline of your career, as far as Spielberg, what were you? Were you at, so you did the Bob Newhart show? You wrote for the Bob Newhart show for a little bit, right?
George Yannick and I wrote an episode together.
Okay, you wrote an episode together, and then from there, the where like does the Odd Couple come in later, or does it come in before? Like,
Odd Couple. Let's see. I got the Odd Couple in '73, I think. '72,
okay,
'73. I was story editor on the Odd Couple, because
Wow.
I quit The Odd Couple to do Jaws. I mean, that was
Okay, that's what I was wondering because in the when I was trying to do a little research on that, it's a little fuzzy on like where you were at that time.
I was employed on the regularly employed on The Odd Couple as a story editor,
Okay.
and I got a phone call on a Sunday morning from Stephen. He said, "I showed you." He had sent me the script for Jaws
Hmm.
with a note on the cover saying "eviscerate it." So I wrote a long memo about what I thought of the script because in those
Right.
days we did those kind of things.
Sure.
So I wrote a long single space memo, which I still have.
Ooh.
And in the memo, I made a great prediction and a great mistake.
Oh.
The mistake first, I said, "Does the girl have to get killed just because she has sex?" That's such a teenage horror. That's such a horror movie cliche.
Right.
A young person has sex and then they die.
Right.
It's some sort of primitive morality play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, does she have to die? Well, little did I know that Stephen would shoot Chrissy's death the way he did, which is, one of the great first 10 minutes of film in
Yeah.
history. So that was my mistake. What I did say, I said, if we do our jobs right, talking about director-writer combination,
Hmm.
people will feel about swimming in the ocean the way they felt about taking a shower after Psycho.
Me. Yes. You
Right.
did your job.
For the next 45 years, whenever I meet someone and I tell them I worked on Jaws, the first thing they say is, when I saw that movie, I didn't go in the water, I didn't go in the lake, I didn't go in a bathtub, I didn't go in the toilet.
Hmm.
Everybody and I have to nod and smile, say, yes, I know. It's very effective.
Yeah.
They're sharing something that's personal to them, and I've heard it before, but
Yeah.
that's
And now you're doing PSAs to get people to go into the water this day.
yeah, yeah,
Going to college campuses.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing it when I was a kid and I was terrified. I mean, it was great because it's a funny movie, like too. Like the lines are great, it's subtly funny, but it also scares the ever-loving shit out of you because they're real characters. So the lines are delivered very, I didn't go somebody said I didn't go in the toilet.
Yeah. No, no, it's true. I mean, everybody had their own reaction to it, and
Hmm.
everybody has shared that ever since. And at the time, nobody knew. I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't think it would be that impressive, but as it turns out, it was.
Did you so like compared to movies you'd done after that and stuff that you had worked on and even stuff that's going on today, do you feel that it helps a film like that to work under the restrictions that you had at the time? Because you were like what over you went over time shooting that movie.
Yeah,
The shark wasn't working. You had to worry about the day. You were there was no CGI, so you had to worry about like all those stuff. But it made a beautifully perfect film and I mean, it's arguably like just still stands as one of the best films.
yeah.
And
I to this day, I mean, I on your show and other shows and just online chat rooms, there's like 10 Jaws groups,
yeah, yeah,
maybe a few 100,000 or maybe a million followers,
yeah,
and
all arguing about.
oh
I was
yeah,
gonna say,
they dissected the film 100.
yeah,
And it's funny, every 6 months the same question comes up, and everybody jumps on the new guy and says, "We talked about that."
yeah. I stumbled into one where somebody was arguing about whether Pippet should have died, and they were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
Like,
no,
which is
they
hilarious.
study the film frame by frame. I've never watched it with that precision. Uh, at the time, you have to remember, at the time, it was a studio picture in the classic sense that it was developed by Universal. It had a Universal crew. There was a
Hmm.
camera department, a casting director, the technical department were all Universal employees.
Right.
It was, and Zanuck and Brown were under contract to Universal. Steven was under contract to Universal.
Hmm.
So it was a really conventional studio film that kind of got out of control in terms of budget and time. But we had an executive producer at the time named Bill Gilmore who believed in Steven and the project and was on the set and on location with us. And he he saw the value of not pulling, because at one point the suits came to Martha's Vineyard with the intention of
Oof.
analyzing what was wrong because we were over budget and over time,
Right.
and if necessary, pulling the plug, bring everybody back to Hollywood, finish the film on the back lot for $1.50, and then just put it out and trying to make back the investment.
Wow.
But wiser heads prevailed, and Bill Gilmore is the hero because in those days, budgets were kept manually with the adding machine and tape.
Mm-hmm.
And every budget had, 3 columns. Budgeted cost, cost to date,
Okay.
cost to complete.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Gilmore, in anticipation of the executives arriving, had run the numbers the night before, and they had jumped precipitously from being, 11 days over and $6 million over. We were suddenly 26 days over and $15 million over.
Right.
These are all great numbers. And Bill Gilmore took it on himself to leave that budget with the numbers locked in his desk drawer, and he did not share it with the suits. He showed them the previous week's rundown, and they said, "Well, all right, might as well finish. You're so close."
Yeah, that's genius.
And he was risking his job. He could have gotten fired.
Right. But he believed in the film, and he believed in you guys and what you were doing.
Yep.
That's incredible. So who did you hate on that set? No, I'm just kidding. I don't have to ask. We want some Jaws dirt. No, that's cool. Like, so was there? I know I'd heard something that you were talking about. You and Steven would sit down like afterward to figure out what wasn't working, what was working, and kind of rewrite things. Was there ever a point in time where like a line just wasn't working in a scene, and you had to come out and rewrite it and rework it with the actors, or did it mostly go as smoothly as possible when you guys were on set?
No, it was all over the place. First of all, we had with the exception of half a dozen professional actors, the whole company were either amateurs or locals. We were very lucky that Lee Fierro was a local. I mean, she was a trained actress, and she ran the little theater on the Vineyard, and
right.
she did Mrs. Kintner.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But a lot of the other people were just people. I mean, Polly. If you listen to Polly, that's actually what I call it's naive acting. It's like naive. Have you ever seen naive art, like Grandma Motis?
Yes.
People who don't, they're not trained artists, but they write, they paint.
Yeah.
Well, Polly is a naive actress. She's she's just saying the words, and you can tell that she's not an actor.
Right.
But she looks the part so incredibly, and Spielberg and Shari Rhodes were geniuses at casting.
Right.
You completely buy her.
Yeah.
As who she is.
And yeah, and Brody plays off of her so well anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? In that one scene, and and she delivers that like it's one of my mom's favorite movies. And every summer we get together, we rewatch it or whatever. But when she says that they're karateing, like it's hilarious. Like it's a funny line. She delivers it really well, and he's just ignoring her, typing away. And boom, scene's over. It's beautiful.
Yeah. But the whole shoot was a series of these, happy accidents where we got lucky, or Stephen was and Shari were made the right choices with supporting players, and we got through it. It was one of those things where reminds me of a cartoon I saw once in the New Yorker of a bunch of druids looking at a brand new Stonehenge. It's just been finished. None of the stones have fallen down. It's complete.
Right.
And one of the druids is saying to the other, "Just well, we did it, but don't ask me how."
That's fantastic. And there's everybody's favorite. I mean, does everybody have a favorite on the set that was a local? That was because mine is Ben Gardner. And line.
He was a wonderfully colorful character. Yeah, Craig Kingsbury.
Yeah. He was amazing. And that line that he delivers, which I'm sure you've heard a million times over, but when he's on the boat and he just goes, "Wait till we get them silly bastards down in that rock pile boat. It'll be some fun. They'll wish their father."
That's just Craig ad-libbing, in character.
which is
And
incredible because it's hilarious.
yeah, I remember when Steve and Sherry introduced me to Craig.
Hmm.
Steven said, make notes when this guy talks. He's got a really colorful turn of phrase.
Right.
So a lot of his dialogue was stuff that he said that I just kind of wrote down and put in the script.
Fantastic.
And it all worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Craig
Did,
was a wonderful guy.
right. And was so uh one of the things that I'd read, I think it was in your book too, is that Richard Dreyfuss was nervous about a performance prior to when he took on Jaws. Like he had just done
He had just done
um
a Canadian movie called The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz.
yeah, Diddy Kravitz, and he said it was the first time he'd seen himself on screen and was like, I better fucking get another acting job. Toot sweet. And so was that like, was there any kind of, did you guys notice that on the set that he was like, I
No,
hope they
no.
don't see it?
It was. I mean, I knew Richard from when he was just out of high school. He and Rob Reiner had a little improvisational theater company
Oh, wow.
that was inspired by the committee.
Okay.
It was called The Session, and it was Rob Reiner, Richard Dreyfuss, an actor named David Arkin, who was in MASH, a wonderful actress named Marge Doucet, who made a good career in soap operas afterwards,
Right.
a buxom little starlet named Bobby Shaw, who was the model for Little Annie Fanny.
Wow.
She looked like Little Annie Fanny.
Yeah, yeah.
And who else was? There might have been one other person. Anyway, it was a standard little improv company of four guys, two girls.
Hmm.
So I knew Richard since like 19 or 20 in high school. When I got to when Stephen and I hooked up, and I got hired to do Jaws, I quit on one day's notice. I quit The Odd Couple and got on a plane with Stephen to Boston, and he started casting extras, and I started rewriting the script.
Nice.
And 3 weeks to go, and
Wow.
with no idea of what exactly we were doing, except
Right.
we had a whole script in mind, and
Hmm.
with the enthusiasm and of youth, we just said, well, we'll just tear it up and start again, and we did. And I was writing, some days I was writing a week or two ahead of the schedule. Other days I was writing the night before scenes got shot, and then I'd be out on the set as an actor, and I could work with the other actors on the set, making suggestions,
Hmm.
listening. And if I wasn't on the set, I was back at the log cabin. I shared a house with Spielberg, and
Right.
it's in many ways it's the best creative experience of my life
Yeah.
because it's so pressured, and the best thing about writing one day before shooting is nobody's going to rewrite you.
Right. Right. So all your stuff makes it. They're like, whatever it is.
Anything you give them on paper, at
Yeah.
least it's distributed to the cast. If they say it right or not, that's up to them. Richard could never say Carcharodon carcarius. We had to loop that afterwards. It's
Really?
yeah, we put those words in his mouth.
Wow.
He never got it right on the set.
Oh my God, that's incredible. I didn't know that.
No,
And I can't imagine there was a lot of time for shenanigans with you and Spielberg living together. Did you even get to enjoy that, or was it all
no,
just like you're like,
no,
no long night conversations, just bed
no. I
work?
mean, Stephen was obsessed with the next day's work.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with the next day's pages.
Hmm.
Werner was obsessed that we not lose track of anything and forget to write material, or that we would cut stuff that would be needed later. So
Right.
Werner was there with us all the time, and she was cutting right along, right behind Stephen. She was just cutting as the footage came in. So it was a very, very creative, and because we shared the house, Stephen had learned on Sugarland Express, his first feature,
Right.
that a lot of time is wasted at the end of the shooting day. Your company, everybody wants to take a shower, get dressed. Where are we going for dinner? Are we going to eat
Right.
at the hotel, or are we going to go out for dinner? So he said, I rented a house with a housekeeper and a cook, so we don't have to waste all that time. We can go straight from dailies to dinner to sleep and get up in the morning and do the next day's work.
And somebody had asked, was it more freeing creating during that time? Courtney.
Well, it was freeing in that there was nobody was second guessing. Nobody was saying, "Oh, you can do this better."
Right.
What they got was what they got. Luckily, Stephen and I are perfectionists, and we tried to get it right the first time because we knew there wouldn't be a second time.
Right.
And sometimes we got it right, sometimes we missed, but for the most part, it came out right.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy the amount of pressure that you guys were under, how well everything came out. Like so there's like subtle humor in that, and I'm sure that comes from your years of doing comedy writing and stuff. And I'm gonna try to play one clip that I just think is, I bet you no one I bet you no one has ever been like this scene, but I'm gonna play it, and hopefully you'll understand what I'm talking about here.
We've got some roadblock signs outside. Now, you got to get somebody to help us. Yeah, get those roadblock signs out on the highway, because we've got more people down here than we can handle. Yeah.
So, did that play with the sound too, or no?
Yeah, it did.
It did. That is like ice every time. Like my family and I watch that film, that bad part. That's hilarious. That he just grabs some rocks, throws it the window, and his deputy is just like, "Hey."
Yeah.
It's that stuff that makes Jaws so entertaining too. And so is that stuff that you guys improvise? Did they get to do a lot of improvise on the set, or was that all written and tight into the film?
No, that was they found that on the set.
They did.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I was. I mean, a lot of films, they always talk about whether people got to improvise and stuff like that, but I wasn't sure under the time strains, because the line "We need a bigger boat" was improvised by Roy Scheider, right?
Well, I said that for years, and then there's some fan sent me a documentary,
right,
where Roy says that was in the script.
Really?
So I never know to take credit for it or not. I have always kind of maintained that it was like it came out of the moment,
right?
And it worked so well it became a most loved line.
It's it's absolutely iconic. And so, was there any kind of I'm sure again, you've talked about this tons of times before, but Robert Shaw is notoriously, they didn't get along with Richard Dreyfuss. But everything I've watched about that kind of interaction between the two, Richard seems to be oddly fond of Robert Shaw. Was it really that bad on the set, or was it like?
They were both serious actors. Richard had been acting since high school. Shaw, besides being a gifted actor, was a novelist and a screenwriter. He had won a Pulitzer Prize for The Man in the Glass Booth.
Right.
He's a very accomplished guy. Sadly, he had a drinking problem, but that happens.
Right.
And their characters were at odds, so they'd be as friendly as any cast member. Well, they were leads and they played opposite each other, but so they spent a lot of time together. But they weren't actively hostile. But as they would get to the set, as they would get into character, they would get into the antagonistic part of their relationship. So by the time the cameras were rolling, they were, snappish with each other.
Okay.
Genuinely so, in a way that comes out on the screen.
Right.
So when I wrote lines like, don't give me that working class hero shit.
Right.
That was what I know of Richard and his, his socialist background.
Mm-hmm.
And Shaw, being the guy he was. So we were lucky in that film that almost everything served the script, which is
right.
What you want to happen. You want even the incidentals to resonate with the rest of the script and with the rest of the actors. So, the actors who are playing the townspeople who killed the shark. You know that great story, a what? You know, kind
Yeah.
of a guy. Um, it's all kind of ad lib, but at the same time, it's ad lib with direction.
Okay.
Most actors think that ad lib just means adding lines, you know, saying more stuff so you have more screen
Right.
time. But if a writer has done his or her job and created a fully fleshed out character with a backstory that you can imagine, then the actor will ad lib in character. They'll say things that you might have written if you had had the time to think about it, or you know, under the gun, or if you had not been on the set at that moment to see what was going on. So even the ad libs were in character. So
Right. And was there like a because I know the book has that affair between you know, Brody's wife and was that a quick decision to cut that out, or did you guys kind of struggle with that?
The first few decisions we made were pruning all the undergrowth from the novel, the mafia subplot, the real estate development. And when we got to casting Lorraine Gary and Richard Dreyfuss, one of the joys of working on that movie was I was writing for actors whose voices I heard and whose personalities I knew. So I could write for them, and when you saw them, you couldn't imagine that she would be having an affair with him. You know, it didn't make sense. Now, originally, the studio wanted Jan Michael Vincent to play the Hooper part.
Oh, wow.
Which would have been consistent with the novel. You know,
right.
The oceanographer is a hunk, and the frustrated sheriff's wife has an affair with him. But that was so far from any reality that we knew that we said, no, that's got to go. That's just misplaced.
Right, and no offense to Richard Dreyfuss.
No offense. And when we started, when I got to Boston with Stephen, we only had Roy Scheider. We did not yet have Robert Shaw, and we did not yet have Richard Dreyfuss.
Right.
And the script had gone to Dreyfuss, and he had rejected it. He said famously, "This is a movie I'd rather see than be in." So Stephen was saying, geez, I'd really like to get Richard. And because I had a prior relationship with Ricky, as I knew him, I called my wife in L.A. I said, can you find out where Richard is right now at this moment? And she called back. You know, she's a real efficient movie and theater person herself. So she called me in Boston and said, you're in luck. He's promoting Duddy Kravitz, and he's in New York. He can take the shuttle right up to Boston.
Right.
So we said, agents talk to each other, and then the next day or two, Richard showed up at the hotel, dressed almost in the exact outfit that he wore in the movie. He had a Levi jacket, a scraggly beard, a knit watch cap, and rimless glasses.
Wow.
And he walked into the hotel room, and Stephen said, "Don't change a thing. Keep those clothes. Don't sell." Because he really looked like the Hooper that we saw in the movie.
Right.
So we talked him into doing the movie, and it was in that hotel room that we first found the gag about crushing the styrofoam cup.
Oh my God! Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That's great.
Yeah, we were in this hotel room. We were at the Holiday Inn in Boston because it was a cheap production. Zanuck and Brown, I'm sorry to say, were stingy bastards. And they put us in the Holiday Inn, and room service at the Holiday Inn was styrofoam.
Wow.
So then, and of course, the hotel room was littered with styrofoam because we were ordering our meals in, and Stephen was interviewing actors, and I was typing away. We had a 2-bedroom suite. I was in one bedroom with a typewriter. Stephen was in the other bedroom, and in the living room in the middle is where we would interview actors, like Richard. And Richard came in, looked exactly like the part. We started talking. He crushed a styrofoam cup, and we were talking about crushing a can and then crushing a cup. And Stephen said, "Good, yeah, put that in the script." So it wound up in the script, and it's a big laugh.
Yeah.
And and we found stuff like that in the hotel.
Wow. And he was going to like, so Spielberg, by the time that movie wrapped, like he left, right? Like he was going to do Close Encounters immediately afterward. Did you guys hang around and like make sure it like smooth everything out, or was everything kind of done by that point?
No, there was a year between the time the film finished shooting and the time it came out. It wrapped sometime in September or October of '74. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't come out until June of '75. So there was like a
Right.
6-month period where the film was being cut and edited and assembled, scored, and all that stuff.
Oh, okay. So he didn't leave early to work on another film?
No, he was still prepping Close Encounters. He was working with Paul Schrader at the time.
Oh, okay.
But we George, all we were doing. Will you excuse me for just a moment?
Sure, yeah.
There's somebody I want to talk to.
I've had this happen to me on dates before too. I know the drill.
Okay, now it's going to ring on my other phone,
Fantastic.
and then I have to answer it. Oh, here it is. Right.
Is this a whole bit you do where you have like 16 other phones by your desk?
Yeah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi, I'm in the middle of an interview on television on cable. So can I call you right back?
Oh, sure. Tell everybody I said hi out there, TV land.
Okay.
Hi.
What's the name of the show we're on?
It's called Dystopia Tonight with John Poveromo. Me.
Dystopia Tonight with John
Poveromo. Yes.
And it's on.
Hi.
We'll your dystopia and call me right back. We'll give you some utopia to get over the dystopia.
Okay, thanks.
Give her the link. Tell her to come on.
One of my oldest and dearest friends who I met on Jaws 3D.
Fantastic. At what point during the show is Spielberg going to be calling?
What's that?
I said, at what point during the show is Spielberg going to be calling?
No, we don't talk anymore.
You don't? Why? What happened?
Well, he became Steven Spielberg. I mean, there's an arc in show business where you become rich and famous,
Right.
and your friends find it hard to keep up with you. If you want to drop everything and go skiing in Aspen and take a private jet, your friends can't afford to do that, so you have to take them.
Yeah, and you should.
And pretty soon, your friends stop even reaching for the check. They just assume you're going to pay it. And then comes a point in your life where your friends, they don't want to hang out because they're embarrassed because they can't keep up. They don't have a private jet. They don't have access to what you have access to.
Right.
So they start to fall away. And then if you're Steven Spielberg or Tom Hanks or anybody else, for a brief period in your life, and if you the only people you talk to are people you pay. Your nutrition, your trainer, your agent. You just everybody is employed. Everybody depends on you for their living.
Right.
So some people will be frank and tell you, not make varnish stuff. They won't blow smoke up your ass and say you're the greatest. But when it boils down to it, eventually they reach a point where they can either tell you something that's going to cost them their job, or they'll just keep quiet. And at that point, they keep quiet. So you don't hear some of the things you should be hearing from your friends, but you don't have any close friends at that point.
Yeah, and that's how you wind up being Kanye West, divorcing your hot wife and smoking weed out in a yurt in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, and if you're not smart, or if you don't have a support structure in place, things can you can spin out of control and never come back. Or if you're lucky, in Tom Hanks had a loyal and supportive spouse, Rita Wilson, and they got along just fine, and he could hang out, and Tom could hang out with Spielberg because they both could afford a big yacht of their own.
Yeah.
So
It is kind of weird, that celebrity culture where like you wonder why certain celebrities, yeah, somebody said you either keep up, you're a moocher. Like,
yeah,
but like it's like in the improv back in the day, like where like because Bud Friedman would have people coming in all the time, I guess, and you
yeah,
couldn't sit celebrities with real people, so it would be like this eclectic table of people who've never like Stallone, Bette Midler, and Elaine Stritch. You know what I mean? Like people you
yeah,
wouldn't think hang out, but they're all rich and they're all on a different, so they have to.
yeah,
It's like almost like forced play dates for the
yeah,
wealthy, which I'm not boohooing. I mean, that's great,
yeah.
but
No, it there's a reason why stars hang out with other stars.
right.
It's just easier.
Well, you and I can hang out, right? We're not that far
Sure,
apart, are
no,
we?
no, we're not.
Fantastic. I don't have a yacht, so we can totally go and get an Uber and go grab a burger somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So who were your, I want to get more about you and stuff like that too. So did you have more writing heroes when you were coming up, or were they all comedians? Because you do stand up, right?
No, I never did per se. I never did stand up.
You
I
never
was
did. Okay.
I only worked in the committee, and I was a great improviser. If I do say
Hmm.
so myself, I was a good
Yeah.
improviser, and I was at a good company. And we did a movie. We did a lot of stuff together, and I got a lot of
Hmm.
jobs from working in the committee from people who saw me and were impressed by my quick wit. Because
Right.
in improvisation, if you say it, you wrote it. So
Sure.
people are looking for writers. They're going to look for people on an improvisational stage who are articulate and funny and all. And
Hmm.
I happened to be those things at the time, so I would get those jobs. Um, uh,
So
so you just you went you basically went from one thing to I did. I just went from one thing to another. I just happened to be hanging out with people who were talented and gifted, and
right.
you know. To the
Did
point
you
where if I was a Jeopardy category, it would be his hits begin with a J.
right.
Both are the AFI top 100 movies of all time. Jaws is number 2 horror film after Psycho,
Hmm.
and The Jerk I think is 45 or so.
Yeah,
But
The
they're
Jerk
both,
is phenomenal. That was
yeah.
so it was like so you knew Steve coming up. So who were your like comedy heroes when you were growing up, when you were like coming into the business? Anybody that you like looked up to or got to work with that you were like actually starstruck or
Well, I was never star. I tried not to be starstruck. I mean, I was too cool to be starstruck.
yeah.
Uh, uh, but when I was coming up, I mean, when I was a kid, I watched your show of shows, and Sid Caesar, Imogene Coca,
Hmm.
Carl Reiner, Howard Mars. That ensemble company and that ensemble writers room. That was the best there was in the world, and I
Right.
aspired to that. If if I was going to be in show business, I wanted it to be like that.
Right. Was it
And
cool when you got to work with Carl on The Jerk?
yeah, no, I mean, but by the time we got to The Jerk, I knew Carl. I had acted in Oh God, which is a movie that Carl directed with
Right.
John Denver.
John Denver's the best. Yeah, I love John Denver.
If you watch Oh God, there's a
Hmm.
courtroom scene,
Yes.
and the camera pans the courtroom slowly, and it lingers on me in the courtroom as a spectator.
Okay.
And it's kind of an unnatural shot because there's no reason for the camera to linger on me,
Hmm.
except in the original script, my character was in the courtroom and then has some scenes with John Denver and Terry Garr afterwards. But those scenes were cut. So all that you're left with is the slow shot establishing Carl for no purpose.
That's hilarious. I remember that thinking like, what the hell has happened? So you got to do scenes with John Denver and Terry Garr anyway, though, right?
Yeah, well, I knew Terry. You know, Terry was the actress everyone loved. Forever.
Okay. Hmm.
I met her in the '60s when she was. As a matter of fact, I think Fred Roos, who was a famous casting director who was managing Terry at the time,
Right.
in '67, I was in LA doing a pilot. I was staying in a hotel in the Sunset Strip,
Hmm.
and Fred Roos called and said, "I'm with a young lady who's was having a birthday and she'd like to smoke a joint, and I don't smoke. Do you have anything? I said, yes, I do. So in comes Terry Garr on her 21st birthday,
Hmm.
and we smoked a joint and went to the whiskey
Nice.
and heard some band or another, and I was in love ever since.
Wow. Did you guys date for a while?
We never dated. We've been friends, and I
Okay.
would spend whatever time I could spend with her. I mean, she was shooting a movie in Portugal when I was in Europe, so I
Oh,
went.
wow.
We went to the set, visited. We toured Portugal together. We hung out at all the chances we got.
Wow. I did not know that.
She's quite ill now.
She's
So
hilarious. She's like I mean, the only other person I've seen that's uh kind of reminds me of Terry Garr is Lisa Kudrow,
yeah,
who and Terry Garr
Terry played her mother.
played her mother in The Thing, which is hilarious because that was
Yeah,
like
and you
that
actually
was pitch perfect.
You got to see actually where it came from.
Exactly, yeah. And it was so funny because I think Lisa did an interview and she was like, "I stole so much from you," and Terry Garr was like, "I know."
Well, there was Terry Garr. Um, I had a thought here, but it's eluding me.
It'll come back.
Okay.
Talk. So yeah, if you will come back to it. So I'm gonna ask you about John Denver because I'm a huge John Denver fan too. Did you get to do so much with him, or was it just like a one-off and that's it?
I was just a one-off, and then he died.
And then and they connected you two ever since, though. By the way, you're on the suspect list. They saw you hanging around that plane.
He flew his plane into the ground.
Yeah, no, I know. That's terrible. Thanks for bringing the show down. No, no, it's crazy, but that's awesome. See, I didn't like it. It's weird because like your whole trajectory, like you said, you just kind of went from one thing to another. So it's like you very rarely get to talk to somebody who was like, yeah, no missteps. Like, is there anything that you would say that you turned down that you wish you hadn't, or did you really just kind of?
There's only
like,
one decision that I even think about.
Right.
Twice. In 72, 73.
Mm-hmm.
No, 70, when it was 70, 71. Let me wait. Let me think for a second.
Sure.
I had finished Jaws. I had to keep working, so between the time we wrapped Jaws, I went to work. I did 4 Flip Wilson specials on NBC, and the first special was produced by Lorne Michaels. So this would have been 70.
Wow.
71, 72, 71. And no, I'm getting the chronology wrong, but the decision was Lorne Michaels asked me to come with him to New York to do this new live show that he was going to debut. That he was going to be the producer of. And we had spent some time talking about what we would do if we had our own show.
Okay.
Because I had come. We both came from network television. He came from Canada,
Right.
and I was. I had done Smothers and Odd Couple,
Yeah.
and I had done comedy specials. So we had a shared background, and he said, come to New York. We'll get a job for Allison, my wife, my then wife, and I thought long and hard, and then and by that time, I think Jaws was in the can but hadn't come out yet.
Okay.
So I talked about it with Allison. Do we want to go to New York? And then I opted not to go to New York because I had a movie career going, and in those days there was only movies and television, and everybody in television wanted to be in movies.
Right.
And everybody in movies wanted to be in rock and roll, and everybody in rock and roll wanted to be in the movies.
Right.
But so I thought long and hard about it. I said, no, I got a career going in features here in LA. I'm going to be doing a Richard Pryor movie, so I'll wait it out. In the meantime, Chevy came to L.A. I acted in Chevy's first network special because he left
Wow.
Saturday night. He left Saturday night after the second year, or first year.
Yeah.
And then he came to L.A. and I acted in his TV special.
Wow.
And then in '75, when Gene Dumanian came in, the whole cast, their 5 year, all their options were up. The show, all those people, Belushi, Aykroyd, I knew Lorraine Newman, and I had met Belushi as a result of being on the show.
Nice.
So all those people came to LA to seek their fortune, and I was already here doing film. So,
Right.
I didn't, as it turns out, I did not regret going to New York. And it would have been the Herb Sargent job. I would have been head writer. I would have been the older, experienced comedy writer.
Oh man.
The staff.
Right.
So I would have been in the writers' room in that first 5 years with all those guys, and it would have been the best of all possible worlds. Because if you were in New York the first 5 years of Saturday Night,
Yeah.
you were a national hit, on television, which meant you could get bumped up to first class and
Right.
all the perks of national media stardom.
Mhm.
And you were in a show that was the hottest ticket on Broadway. There's only 150 seats in Studio 30. And
Right.
It was a hugely in-demand ticket. So you had the best of being on a Broadway hit and a national television hit. So It was great for that company. And I managed to, I did the show. Let's see, I wrote a sketch that was filmed for the show. And then I acted in some of Albert Brooks's little movies that he did.
He's phenomenal. Yeah.
I appeared in one or two of those. So and then whenever I was in New York, we'd go and we'd watch a taping and hang out. Go hang out at 30 Rock.
Right.
To see all the gang. So
That's incredible. So we had a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, what was the question?
Oh, we had a question from Courtney. A question for later if you have time. Anything current that you really like? I feel like filmmakers keep referencing the past, especially the 80s. Good point.
Yeah, well, there's a natural tendency when you get older to, enjoy what you know, and
Right.
And I must say that of the new things, there's very few actors or films that I'm taken by anymore. I mean, maybe I'm old and jaded. Maybe I'm just tired. But I go, I've seen that before. I've seen that before. I've seen that before.
Yeah.
And when I look at the Golden Globe nominations and Grammys and TV Academy stuff, half the people I don't even recognize.
Yeah.
I am not such a media junkie that I keep on top of everybody who's on the air. So
Yeah,
I don't
I hear you.
spend time watching these people. But every now and then you stumble on someone and you, oh wait, this person is really good. I mean, I was in New York. I have a place in New York. I went into a neighborhood nightclub on the Upper West Side, and I had the good fortune to stumble on Patton Oswalt doing one of his first sets in public.
Oh wow, yeah, he's phenomenal. Patton's hilarious. Good guy.
So we became friends, and I've known him ever since.
Wow.
But I knew him when. And every now and then you run across an act, you go, okay, this person's going to be something.
Mm-hmm.
Stay friends with this one.
And he's doing a lot of great stuff. I mean, he's been doing great stuff, but he's been getting into movies and stuff like that and voiceover work. And
Patton's a genius.
Yeah, he's phenomenal, and a really, really nice person too, which is just a bonus in that, in this industry. That's so cool though. So yeah, there's nothing. Would you ever write like a superhero movie? What do you think of those? And you're talking to a nerd, but it's fine. Would you ever write like a superhero? Like if Marvel tapped you, would you do it?
No.
Really?
I do have a script that I wrote that I can't find a buyer for, but it's a big tentpole all-star movie. It requires like 5 movie stars. I mean, the casting the casting would be, Russell Crowe, Jennifer Garner,
Mhm.
Jima Hansu, Lou Gossett,
Wow.
uh, uh, Meryl Streep. I mean, it would be it's a real big movie.
Right.
And, so I despair. That one I don't think will ever get made.
Let's make it. Let's just do it. We got time. It's COVID. No one's doing anything.
It's called Privateers. It's a modern day pirate film, and I wrote it before Captain Phillips.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I knew about Somali pirates before anybody. I researched it. I wrote about pirates.
I feel like this is where you come out and tell me you're a Somali pirate, and I get an exclusive on this show. You just whip out the hat.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, listen, it's been an hour. I don't want to keep you any longer than when I told you I was.
We can talk a little while longer.
That's fine. Bye.
I have an 8 o'clock.
You do too? Okay, great. All right, you have an 8 o'clock. I've got Bobby Slayton said to say hi, by the way.
Oh yeah, I like Bobby.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's coming on. I'm doing a special with him at 10 o'clock. So if you're free at whenever 10 o'clock is, say it's 7 o'clock for you. If you want to say hi, that's fine by me.
No, just tell him hi for me.
You're like, I don't have that kind of time. That's awesome. So is that the last Privateers was the your last project you were working on? Are you working on anything now?
No, every year I don't get my quote anymore. God knows I don't get 6 figures for a script anymore.
Right.
But every year or so I get hired to write a script, and then nothing happens. The financing falls through, or
yeah. Do you prefer the TV or the movie?
Movies. I write movies. I don't write.
Yeah, you write movies. You're not a big fan of the television stuff. It's hard. There's nothing really. I mean, I know it's cliche to say there's nothing good on TV, but like, I don't think there's been a really good sitcom or anything like that that's come out in like the last 10 years. It's a bummer.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
And it's what's crazy too is like I feel like what happens is like. Again, this is gonna. You think you're doing the old man thing over here? I'm not even. I'm 36 and I'm doing it because it's like, it's hard. I feel like it's hard for people to write situation comedies when you have a generation that's never really been in any situation. You know what I mean? Like if they're always doing the digital shit, you know what I mean, and they're too afraid to go outside or do whatever. It's hard. How could you have any experience to know what to write?
Yeah, Chuck Lorre can't write everything.
That's true. He's doing phenomenally well. Nobody else is. Yeah. And they try to bring stuff back. That's what they're doing too now. They're bringing back all these old sitcoms. Like if they are there any of the reboots that you've seen that have kind of blown you away, or do you stay away from that?
I mean, if you watch the original, Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
Well, Peter Boyle's dead for one thing.
Oh well.
But if you watch the remake of something, even if it's got the same actors, I mean they're 30 years older than they were in their run. And they're not so credible anymore. Or if they are credible, they bring the baggage of their previous exposure in the role. So
there's only 2 that I've seen that seem to get the idea that the characters were supposed to have aged in some respect, like they weren't supposed to be stuck in the same. And it was Roseanne before they booted her out of the thing, and before she did whatever. That show came back and didn't miss a fucking beat. Right. I mean, Goodman, Laurie Metcalf, they're both brilliant, obviously, but like even like Sarah Gilbert, Johnny Galecki, like all those guys that came back in, and even Roseanne, they were in step. Whoever they had, like the writers that they had for that knew exactly what they were doing. Yeah. And Paul Reiser's show, Mad About You, when they rebooted that, they changed they aged, they had their own thing, and all the characters seemed to develop the way they were supposed to over the years. Yeah, and then everyone else is like, no.
Yeah, there's that weird, television limbo where it's always 1978.
Right. I don't know why if they all want to come back, they should do it in one giant spell. Like I would, because like growing up, like for me, like it was crazy when you think about like, I mean, I got into stand up eventually because, well, Robin Williams, like one of my favorite comics of all time. I'm bummed I never got to meet him, but like, there was like a period in time where like he was doing. I was a kid, so he did Fern Gully. He did the Bat, the voice of the Bat in that, and then the Genie in Aladdin, and then I saw Mork and Mindy reruns, and then I finally started to be like, well, who the hell is this guy? And then I found that he was a comedian, and then literally found out everybody I liked and thought was funny. Somebody said like Bob Saget trying to be wholesome again after we all found out he just stand up. Exactly. Yeah, you can't go back to that. But it was like it's crazy. Like everybody that was when I was growing up who had a show was a comedian. Drew Carey, Brett Butler, Roseanne, Tim Allen.
That was the career track.
Right.
You did well as a stand-up, and then you got your own show. And
yeah.
When they were looking around for leads for television show, a successful stand-up was something that the network executives could understand because they could see them in the clubs or in the theater, and they go, okay, this person can do a show. So that was the standard career track. You got a hit, so you got 10 minutes of dynamite material, and then you got a TV pilot, and then if the pilot sold, you got your own show, and then you were Ray Romano or Brett Butler or any one of them.
Right.
Those many people.
They were like college degrees. Like you got a pilot handed to you after you graduated from stand-up for so long, and now they don't do. I mean, if you don't have like over a million followers on TikTok, you don't get shit. Like there's no, nobody's developing anybody anymore either. I like how this turned into two people complaining. It was just me complaining really, but but it's crazy. I mean, everything's kind of changed, so much even now. So it's kind of weird to find everybody's hitting their mark or finding their niche somewhere else. Unfortunately, and not and nobody's writing to Esquire and then buying a motorcycle and then heading out west like that whole tale was like a dream. Like I saw it in the beginning of an opening of a movie.
Yeah. I love that experience. I had a passenger as far as St. Louis.
A hitchhiker?
No. There's somebody I knew in New York.
So I was
I'm going to St. Louis.
Hitchhiker along
I'm
the
going
way.
to St. Louis to see my parents. Can I ride with you? I said, sure.
Oh, okay.
So he did. Then I stayed in St. Louis a day or two, and then I continued on solo. And somewhere out in Nebraska or Kansas, somewhere in the middle of the country, I ran out of gas. And then I said, oh, fuck, I'm in the middle of really nowhere. I remember I did pass a gas station 15 miles back, and I don't know when the next gas station is going forward.
Holy shit.
This is 1966, I think.
Yeah, no cell phones.
No cell phones. But then I realized, wait a second, I've got a little U-Haul trailer hooked onto this car.
Mm-hmm.
My motorcycle is on the U-Haul. Okay, I'll take the motorcycle off the U-Haul, kick it over, drive back, get a can of gas, come back, put it in my car, return the gas can, and keep going. So I did. It was like having a life raft. It was like having a lifeboat.
Yeah.
So
Courtney,
that was I felt very resourceful.
Yeah. Courtney said you're a badass, dude. That is a very badass thing to have. It's just a backup motorcycle to kick around on. That's fucking incredible. Did you have a leather jacket and everything too?
Yeah, I did. I had a leather jacket.
I'm going to write the story of your life and then pitch it. And then we'll figure, who would you want to play you?
I've thought about that. Probably Seth Rogen or Seth Rogen, most likely.
Yeah.
And Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill would be great too. Those guys, they've got it. They had a good thing for a while where their movies were killing it. Every movie they put out was hilarious.
When I was thinking of my, the Carl Gottlieb story, I said, Seth Rogen or Jonah Hill as me, Andy Samberg as Steven Spielberg, Kathy Bates as Verna Fields.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Who are you still hooked into all that? Like, is there people that you still go out? Well, I mean, before, in the before times, like, were there comics and people and events that you still went out to see?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, when I was active in writing, I would, I used to go out to clubs all the time.
Nice.
And I'd like try to make a practice of seeing whoever was hot and new. I would the doorman down at the Improv and at the Comedy Store, they kind of knew me, so they would kind of let me in without paying.
Yeah.
So I could just go in and watch whoever was on, and if I saw somebody spectacular, I go, "Whoa,
Yeah.
that's somebody worth keeping track of."
Comedy Store is the best place to hang out.
Yeah, so I saw almost all the comics coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the 70s, not now.
In the 70s, yeah. I like the idea that you have seen them now, though. Like you've always been there. You're just wandering the halls. No, that's awesome, dude. I have to actually. I've got 10 minutes before Slayton comes on, so I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you so much for doing this. You have no idea how much this means to me. It was lovely to talk to you. And I hope we get to do it again. I feel like you're just filled with stories. I could sit here and ask you all night.
That's true.
But he's like, you could. I won't let you, but you could. Well,
depending on my time and my schedule, if you want to do it again, I'm open.
Yeah, I'd love to. I got more questions for you, man. So let's definitely do it again. We'll do a part 2.
All right, I'll click on Leave Studio.
Oh, great. Don't tell the viewers how it's done. It's all magic. You live here now. That's not.
Let me see what happens to the screen.
He left. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in and watching.
Dystopia tonight.